Hi everyone, welcome back. I had a question last week from someone, maybe it was a few weeks ago. I had a question a little while ago from someone who asked about what sorts of to-dos I keep in my modified strike-through list in the back of my bullet journal. So I thought I would talk today a little bit about where those to-dos come from, what it is that I'm tracking, and kind of how it all works. So let's start by talking about where my to-dos come from. I have this notebook because this keeps track of the things that people ask me to do, but I don't have time to sit down and think about where it needs to go. If somebody walks in and says, hey, could you, that's usually where this stuff goes. Hey, can you order a box pickup for core data? Hey, can you call ADT to figure out what happens if the alarm goes off and we're out of town? Hey, can you make sure you pay the Lowe's bill? So this is just kind of a holding place for to-dos that need to be either done immediately but not immediately, done pretty quick, or need to be processed later. So that's what this little notebook is. And it does live back here in this little pocket in the back of my notebook. So during the day, I pull this out and this just sits on my desk next to my open planner. So the strike-through lists, I've talked a little bit about before, but I'll give you a quick overview. So in the front, I have a key, and it's essentially a box with a code in it, so I don't have to write out these things every single time. So I have a project list, and this one is specifically for the onboarding project. I have a work task list, which is essentially a catch-all for anything that doesn't fit anywhere else. I have a list of Google Forms that I need to either create or modify. I have a list of things that I need to update on our leasing platform. I have a waiting for list. I have a blank page. I have an agenda list, so these are things I need to talk about other people with. Another blank page. And then I have a someday maybe list. And then these are just a general list of all of my recurring tasks. How often they happen, what they are, and then I have a note over here if there's a specific date of the month or day of the week that they need to happen. So this would be every second Tuesday. That's what the 2T stands for. All right, so going back, I have not figured out my project planning yet. I am still working on it. This was just a spot to write down tasks that occur to me that have to do with this project, so I make sure that I get those taken care of. Work tasks, it's everything. So I have a accrual questionnaire for benefits I have to fill out. I have that in an email, so there's an EM next to this. It's uploading FIRE files. So when we send out our 1099 forms at the end of the year, so it's essentially a record of how much money somebody, either a vendor or an owner, earned, I have to upload a summary form to the IRS. So I have to do those. There's journal entries I receive via email that I have to put into our system. Registering for events. Verifying people's, either sick or vacation time. I have things that probably could be a project, but right now I just needed to get a placeholder in there, and I may go through and make it a project later. That's namely the rent increases. This is just a catch-all for general tasks that need to be done. The Google Forms and the on-site updates used to be on this work task list, but I actually split them out because they are common tasks. So they're tasks that are done on a common website. So if I'm working on Google Forms, I'm going to be in a zone and I'm going to want to keep doing that. Same thing with the on-site updates. It's easier kind of to bulk do those. And I did want to mention, I think I've pointed this out before, my lists do actually reference each other. So I was trying to open a bank account and there were things I was waiting for. So you'll notice I just made a note that it was a WF, which stands for waiting for, and then the page number. So 239.3. So if I flip over to 239.3, I could see that I was waiting for the remaining items from the list that I sent out. So that way I don't have to forget that there's actually something that is a reason I can't finish these tasks. Usually when I'm referencing another list, it's going to be a waiting for. So that's kind of how I'm doing that. There's also a note here about due dates on certain items so that I make sure I get those completed on time. So if I'm looking for a task to do, I either look for an asterisk, which means it doesn't have a due date, but it's pretty important that it needs to get done soon. Or I'm looking for a due date to make sure I don't miss out on those. So the waiting for list is just a general summary of what it is that I need in order to complete another task. So we need to do our crime policy renewal. I'm waiting for a quote. And technically, before I can do the quote, I actually have to submit the application form. Let me see if I even have that on here. I do. So send crime application to RT Beers. So actually what I need to do is reference that I need to do something up first. So 234.44, that's the page number, dot the task number. So I'm going to make a little note. I'm going to circle it so it stands out so I know, oh, I actually have to do something first before I'm actually waiting for that. Because I wrote this and then I got an email back and said, hey, can you please fill this out? So that's, rather than crossing it out and rewriting it, I'm just going to bounce back and forth and reference tasks back and forth. So I have a chain. It's a little bit like threading. If you've watched the bullet journal videos, he talks about threading lists. So this list continues on another page. You draw an arrow and write another page number. I'm essentially threading my task lists together. So there's a chain of events that I can see. I wrote this task down. I was waiting for something. I come over here. Okay, I was waiting for this, but look, it's crossed out. So then I come back over and I can see, okay, well, I can go ahead and work on that now. Usually if I've completed whatever is threaded, I draw a line through it. So that way I know I'm no longer waiting on whatever that might be. So that's how I handle that. So I've mentioned before, this is my agendas list. Over here on the right side, I have a note about who it's an agenda item with. So K and L, they're initials of my business partners. ACCT means it's my accounting team. The someday maybe list is just that. It doesn't have many things on it because I don't have much of a backlog as far as things that I'm thinking about. I just have the one item, but I have a spot for it should I need to use it. So that is kind of a nutshell of what is on my to-do lists. It's a conglomeration of all the things that I need to do. Some of it super important, some of it not. Some of these should technically be on the someday maybe list, but to me this someday maybe list is more of a I'm not even thinking about it right now sort of situation. Whereas if something's on here but it's not right now, it means it's important enough that I want to make sure that I'm reviewing it very often. So when I'm actually getting ready to work on something, I will go to the daily page, and underneath my appointments, I will actually go ahead and write down a summary. If it's back here, I'm not going to write all of this out again. I'm just going to make a quick note about what it is, enough for me to kind of have a general idea, and then I will reference again the page number, dot, and then the item number. So that way I know, oh, hey, this is something that was on a to-do list previously, and I need to cross it off, cross it off when I complete it. So actually, I just noticed some of these things are back here. So this final accounting is 233.15. Sometimes I forget to check the list, especially when I'm moving quickly. So I can actually cross that off. And I have the other one here. This is 233.16. So that is not completed yet. That's on my list for tomorrow, so I will leave that uncrossed off. So this file 1096s is another one that I know is back here somewhere. Technically, that's the same thing as upload file files. And essentially all this is it's a clue to me that when I've finished this task, I need to go cross it off my main list. So I'm not continuing to look at it and think that it hasn't been finished yet. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to mention is just quickly where these to-dos come from. So obviously you can see that I have an EM, and I will link a video down below where I talked about how I process my emails. So when I get an email that comes in, when I go to either scan, sometimes I'll do an emergency scan, sometimes I'm processing. If I'm processing, I will go ahead and look at it and determine is it something I can do quickly, and if it is, I'll just take care of it. If I'm emergency scanning or I don't have time to work on whatever the task is, a lot of times I will just bump it into my process folder, which means at some point I need to go through, take the time to sit, figure out what it is I need to do about that email, and then create a task from it. So when I go through that processing folder, that's when these tasks end up here. The other place these come from is when I get pieces of paper at the office. So I got a notification that we need to file our statement of information for our company. It's due April 30th. That's not something I'm going to do right this second. To be honest, it doesn't take that long, but I also have to make a payment along with that, and that's actually the part that takes a little bit longer. And with all of the other stuff I have going on, it's not an immediate thing, so I can do that next week or the week after. So I just have a note that I need to do it, and I put a P here knowing that I have a piece of paper that I need to use in order to complete this task. So those are pretty much the two ways I get emails, aside from, again, the ones that pop up in this little book that's the hey, would you tasks. So those, again, I write down in here if I don't have time to put them in the correct correct spot. Usually, if it's something I need to do right that second, I will go ahead and put it in the front in my daily page, but otherwise I stick it in here and then go in and actually write myself a more coherent note about what my to-do list is. And I try and always start these with a verb. So file, fix, look through, setup, take, look into, add, contact, register, verify, send. So it's a verb. I know I need to do something about it. So I'm not writing crime application. Well, what do I need to do with that? Do I need to send it? Am I waiting for it? That's why I have send crime application to RT Beers. Technically, I need to fill it out first too. So I might make a note that I need to complete it. So that's pretty much how my to-do lists work. I will link the original Strike-Thru video below so you can look through and see how he does it. This is actually approaching the original way that the Strike-Thru method worked as far as the task lists go. I call them modified because I also do them in my ring-bound planner where the pages are removable, and at some point I actually will go through, if I only have 2 or 3 non-crossed off tasks, and just write them down on a new sheet of paper. But in this instance where the pages, I guess, are technically removable because these are perforated, but for the most part, I'm just going to cross them off, and when the page is full, I'm just going to find an empty page, make a note here where the list continues, and then continue on. So I hope that was helpful and a better look at how I handle to-dos at the office. My personal to-dos are not as involved, and those usually, if I need to, I have a personal and home list. Let me show them to you really quick. So, similar idea, I have a personal list with the page number at the bottom. I have a house list, so these are like household items with a page number. And it's the same idea. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and reference page number dot item in the front, so I know to go ahead and check them off back here. But that's why I call it modified, is because I can remove pages out of my everyday carry if I wanted to. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. If you liked this video, I'd appreciate you giving it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!